If you were born anytime between 1998 and 2002, then we likely have a few things in common. We were raised on the internet, we don't admit to liking My Chemical Romance even though we secretly do, and we wasted most of our time in school playing Flash games. Flash games are a fond memory among most everyone in this generation, and for good reason. I mean, they were free video games that you could play on virtually any computer. Need I say more? Whether it was the world's hardest game, Toss the Turtle, Fancy Pants Adventure, Bowman, Run 2, I think it's safe to say we all spent a great deal of time playing these games. However, there was one game that reigned supreme for me. One game that helped me shape my crippling addiction to video games and guaranteed that absolutely no work would be done in middle school. This game was Poptropica. If you've never played Poptropica, you're probably thinking, how is this game any different from the countless other Flash games? Well, that's what I'm going to explain to you in this video. I'm going to tell you what exactly made Poptropica so addicting to me as a child. I'll also discuss how our shared love for Flash games actually had very little to do with the games themselves, rather the circumstances we were all experiencing in this era. So with the intro out of the way, let's get into it. Poptropica, a dive into the golden age of Flash games. Poptropica was first created back in 2007 by Pearson Education, which should be a familiar name to most of you, since they control many parts of the US public school system like textbooks and online homework for certain classes. The creator of the game was Jeff Kinney, the writer of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid novels. Upon hearing this for the first time, it made total sense to me, since the game has a simple yet charming art style and is very narrative driven for the most part, just like his novels. The game itself I would describe as an adventure game mixed with a puzzle game that includes platformer elements. The object of the game is to complete islands, each island being its own story separate from the other islands. You talk to NPCs, pick up items, solve puzzles, and complete tasks, all with the end goal of solving the problem of the island. For example, on Superpower Island, you learn a bunch of supervillains have escaped from jail and are now terrorizing the city. You're then tasked with taking down each supervillain one by one. Once you do so, you're rewarded with a medal, and then it's on to the next island. As you beat more islands, you're rewarded with currency that can be spent on cosmetic items to make your character look as dumb as you want it to look. One aspect of the game I haven't mentioned that I think is pretty unique is the fact that the game itself is completely silent, as in there's absolutely no sound at all, no music, no sound effects, nothing. Anytime a noise happens in-game, it's portrayed through text in a comic book-like style. To me, it's clear that the game is going for a novel/comic book style in general. After all, the creator is known for his books that are basically a combination of comic books and novels, so this aspect definitely works for me. Side note, I know a lot of people don't like the controls of the game since it's point and click for everything, including movement, but personally, I never had a problem with it, and once you figure out how to be a bit more precise, I'd say it's a pretty solid control scheme.
Come on, just get in the, just.
Looking back and trying to identify what made me so addicted to this game has made me learn some things about myself. First, it made me question how I got literally any work done in school from 4th to 8th grade. Second, it's made me realize that it's not just a couple of factors that made me love this game, rather a whole slew of factors both from the game and externally that led me to where I was. I'm sure many of you were equally addicted to a different game, and as I said in the opening, the games themselves are hardly what caused these habits to form. Rather, our addictions were a product of the time that we lived through. But what about Poptropica made it so addicting to me? Well, for starters, the gameplay was solid. The combination of puzzles and platforming made for a game experience that was challenging, but not too challenging, meaning it was easy to stay invested since you never really felt like an island was too easy to complete, but you also never felt completely lost. This difficulty balance is what made the game so attractive to me. Completing an island was satisfying in a way that I don't experience with many video games nowadays. The feeling I got after finally beating Spy Island after being stuck on it for days because I couldn't figure out that you need to steal the glass from the Italian restaurant that had the fingerprint on it that you would then put in the fingerprint scanner to enter the secret base. That was a magical feeling. I've also always been a fan of the game's writing and design. Even though the islands aren't always the most original concepts, the narratives were always solidly written, and paired with some good art, they could make you feel exactly how they wanted you to feel. I remember playing at home when I was like 9 one time. It was past my bedtime, so I was already on edge, and I was playing Cryptid Island, where the objective is to find evidence of mythical creatures known as cryptids, so like Bigfoot and like that kind of stuff. Well, at one point, you go to New Jersey to try to hunt down the Jersey Devil, which is like a weird mythical dragon thing from New Jersey. So the whole time, they're having you drive through this super dark forest on a motorcycle, until eventually you get to this abandoned house in the middle of the woods. You walk in and you hear, well, I guess see, a thumping coming from upstairs. As you approach, you see a barrel shaking, and at this point, I was already freaking out because I knew as soon as I opened that barrel, the Jersey Devil would be right there. So as I inched closer, I braced myself, took a deep breath, and clicked on the barrel. As it opens, you see glowing eyes, and that's when you realize that it's actually just a cute little raccoon. Whew, what a relief. Let me get out of this creepy old house and... Holy shit! What is that? I thought this game was made for kids. What the hell? Now, while I've shared my personal love for Poptropica, as I've teased a couple of times, our generation's love for Flash games was about much more than just the games themselves. One of the most important aspects in the popularity of Flash games amongst this age group was the timing. Flash games have been around since 2000, but the earliest Flash games were very rough and quite frankly not very good. However, by the time this generation got their grubby little kid hands on them in the mid to late 2000s, Flash games had become a market that wasn't taken lightly, and many Flash games were being released that were very polished and complete games that could hold their own even against console games. This new generation of Flash games was the first factor in their rise. The next was the new wave of computers. The mid to late 2000s was the time when owning a computer became a necessity for most people. Lower prices meant a shift in the public opinion, and it became uncommon for a household to not have a computer. This was also the time when gaming consoles and video games as a whole were still not widely accepted by the general public, with many parents not allowing their children to play video games, as well as the price of game consoles still being relatively expensive. This timing meant kids that couldn't afford a game console or weren't allowed to play video games could simply log on to the new family computer, open up Newgrounds, and have a virtually endless stream of completely free games. This was also the time that public schools began to really integrate computers into the classroom, with many classrooms having computers in them, as well as computer labs for times when the whole class needed to use the computer. This meant that even kids who did have video games at home or weren't even that interested in video games to begin with now had a reason to access these Flash games. I'm sure it was a tough decision for most kids sitting at a computer: do boring schoolwork or play free video games. It also just so happened that because this was relatively early on in the use of computers in school, the system they used to block certain websites was very limited, and most Flash game websites were not blocked. Because of this combination of well-made Flash games, computers becoming a necessity, video games being expensive and often frowned upon, schools using computers more than ever, and a lack of any type of good firewall software, it's no wonder our generation has such a love for Flash games. These factors meant Flash games existed at the perfect time for them to be extremely popular. If they had existed at any other time, I can't see their success being anywhere near the same. Over the years, Flash games have begun to die out. With the rise of mobile games, advancements in firewall softwares, and Flash Player itself not even being supported by many browsers, it seems as though the age of Flash games is coming to an end. Though I still go back and visit Flash games every now and then, they will never be in the same position they once were. It's already been seen in games like Club Penguin that closed permanently in 2017. It's only a matter of time before Poptropica and the other games I used to love are no longer supported. It's nice to know, though, that we can all relish in the fact that these games existed, that they were as big as they were, and that we can share the memories that we made playing them. It's also cool that I can flex my high score in Snake to people my age for the rest of my life. Flash games were something unique to our generation, a medium that wouldn't be successful in any other era. And while I look back on Poptropica with fond memories, I'm sure many of you are thinking of the Flash game you loved, the one that you would play more than any others, and that's what really matters. It's not the games themselves, rather it's the love we have for them that creates a bond between us, the generation that got to experience the peak of an era. No, but for real, anyone that wants it in Snake can come get it.